Hey, hello, what's up, and welcome into this week's episode of the Geek Garage podcast, where we are going to the movies. I am Ted, joined as always by show creator or founder David. How are you, David?
I am excellent, other than the fact that John Wick 4 was pushed back like another year or so, which left me
Yeah,
fucking pissed. Other
yeah,
than that, I'm doing okay.
yeah. Drop an F in the chat there, boys, as they say on the internet, uh, to pay your respects and, you know, voice some solidarity in the fact that that sucks a lot of fucking dicks. And not even in
Yeah,
that fun way,
r-
like people like. Anyway,
right.
we're gonna get back onto track with some good things, hopefully.
Yes.
This week, like I said, we are going to the movies. We are also kicking off our second theme month, sort of what we're doing with first watches, where essentially David and I both have picked a couple of movies that we have seen, but the other one hasn't. For this week, we're doing Inside Llewyn Davis, which was David's first choice for me to watch, directed by the Coen Brothers. I'm a big fan of the Coen Brothers, but for whatever reason, mostly because I have like 15 million titles on my watch list, I had not gotten to this one yet. For each episode or movie that we cover, we'll ask the respective person their general thoughts about that film, as well as their favorite scenes, performances, or any other things that we think of that go with it. Before we get to that, we do have a few things to cover, as always. Some updates rather on upcoming events. EvilCon in Evansville, Indiana, has been moved and rescheduled. That is now the weekend of July 10th through 12th. We still plan to be there in some capacity, so come say what's up if you are there. AkayaCon right here in Middle Tennessee is set for July 24th through 26th. Again, we do plan to be there in some capacity, so come say what's up if you're in the neighborhood, as the
Yep.
children say.
Yes. I think that's what the children say.
No one knows. I've never been a child. Middle Tennessee Anime Convention, or MTAC, has been postponed and not yet rescheduled. We will keep you posted on that.
Yep.
MomoCon in Atlanta has been postponed through to 2021, which is a bummer. We were psyched to be there for the first time. Hopefully that is taken care of in 2021, comes back better than ever. And same for Nashville Comic Con. That was supposed to be the first one here in Middle Tennessee and Nashville. That was postponed until 2021 as well. Hopefully everything works out with that and we see them next year and see everybody there next year as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to EvilCon and AkaiCon, though. Hopefully, those dates stay in place. Nothing too crazy happens. We can still make those events because, yeah, con season. I mean, that's one thing that I know I look forward to every year. It's just a great way to kind of see a lot of friends that are also like grown adults and super fucking busy, and it's for a lot of us it's the one of the very few times we get to see each other. So hopefully a few of these will get to either be rescheduled or they will stay put in their current schedule.
Yeah, I'm pretty much just going to echo what David said. It's usually a lot of fun, especially for a shut-in like myself, to actually get out and be around other people, some of whom have similar interests. And that is all I will
Right.
say on that.
Hmm.
We do have a couple of new Patreon donors. Um,
Yep.
I'm
You want
assuming these are the Dillinghams. I don't know.
Yeah, we have two new Patreon donors, and as per usual, whenever we get a new Patreon donor, regardless of whatever tier you subscribe to, you get a shout out on the preceding podcast that comes after you subscribe. And these shout outs are going to Reagan Dillingham and Evan Dillingham, brother sister duo, tag team, taking over the universe. They are cool peeps. I've known them for a very long time. I want to preface this saying that I did not like force them against their will to sign up. Like, don't think that
Reagan,
because
Evan,
they're
if you have been forced against your will to donate money to our bullshittery, please blink
blink
twice.
blink
Never
twice.
mind that we're not in the same room as you, and I can neither confirm nor deny if you will be blinking. But
Right.
put it
Send
on the
us a picture of you blinking
yes, and
or,
then
or a
we'll
video.
ignore it because David will intercept it with his weird hacker rig.
Right.
Moving right along, thank you. And what also the hell is wrong with you for donating to us? That means a lot, and also get help. We had a Facebook poll up on the Geek Garage fans, whatever it's called, group page.
Yes.
It was to celebrate May the 4th. For some reason, it was which of the three Star Wars trilogies was your favorite? There were three of them. That's three too many. The original trilogy, the prequels, or the new trilogy. The winner, as of this afternoon at least, was the originals, episodes 4 through 6, also known as the only ones that are worth sitting through. So big surprise there.
Yeah. That definitely was not a surprise. I don't believe that the prequels got any votes.
I'm gonna go ahead. I'll be that guy.
Yeah.
The prequels suffered because they didn't have anybody to tell George no. There's some really good ideas in there, and they could have been really good, but unfortunately,
And and
at that
dis- and despite like your overall view of Star Wars, I think the majority of people that criticize the prequels will agree with that statement.
yeah, there are some very good ideas in there. The
Hmm.
problem is, like I said, by the time he started working on those, he had been surrounded by yes men for so long
Right.
that nobody was like, George, maybe sit the fuck down and let somebody who can actually write and edit do those things. Um,
Yeah.
Great world builder, but it doesn't always translate, buddy. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, there's I don't I'm very hesitant to talk any more about this because I don't want to get on any sort of tangent and have this intro run like 25 fucking minutes long. So I think we'll just leave it at that. Everyone who participated in this Facebook group poll, thank you very much. We appreciate your participation as always.
Yes. Now, with all that said, I think it's time to get to the reason for the season, as the children say, to go up another phrase, and talk about Inside Llewyn Davis right after this.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
All right, so let's go ahead and get this show started. Like Ted said in the intro, we are going to be talking about Inside Llewyn Davis today. The film, I believe, it debuted in 2014. It was directed by the Coen Brothers, and it's definitely not my favorite Coen Brothers movie, but that's along the same lines of like choosing your favorite flavor of ice cream or what other thing in your life that's it's just a bunch of great stuff and you're like picking you're like it's the toughest decision in your life. You know what I'm talking about? Either way, it's a great movie, and when I discovered that Ted hadn't seen it, I knew that it definitely had to go on the list because I figured that he would get a kick out of it. And kind of like he said, he just didn't have a chance to get to it yet because his movie list, just like my movie list, is like a fucking mile long. So I definitely wasn't going to fault him for it. But we are taking the opportunity, excuse me, to talk about it right now. So without further ado, Ted, what are some of your general thoughts about Inside Llewyn Davis?
I liked it. I liked it a lot. As I said at the start of the podcast, I do enjoy all of the Coen Brothers movies that I've seen.
Hmm.
I would be hesitant to say that they've put out an out and out bad film.
Hmm.
There are some that I don't enjoy as much as others, but they still have their moments, so to speak. So overall, I definitely liked it. I thought it was it was very obviously a Coen Brothers film, and what I mean by that is they definitely have their signature sort of style, their signature sort of script writing.
For sure.
Um, like in many of their other films, this went from very bleak and despairing and nihilistic to very wisecracking, even in some cases before you realize that it happened. And I don't mean
Right.
in like a slapstick way, like it didn't go from, like a French art house film and suddenly now we're throwing pies at one another, but just a line of dialogue or a look a character gave, something like that. And it just that very signature Coen style. And, if you're familiar with a lot of their films, then you know exactly what I mean by that.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head as far as like the tone starting out definitely in the nihilistic realm and ending on a definitely a slightly lighter, higher notes, especially with him. Despite the fact that he like the last scene in the movie is him almost getting the shit kicked out of him in the alleyway behind a bar venue. His last little comment, he was like, all right, see you later. And then like the movie ends, like it just fucking kills me like every time, because I'm like, such fucking classic Coen Brothers like sign off line way to end a movie.
Right.
So when I first saw this movie, I didn't really know about the term like slice of life kind of film, and you were the one who kind of put it in perspective to me when we went to go see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and you were like, yeah, it's like a slice of life film, and I was like, oh, that's what that means. And so when I watched this the other night and in preparation for this episode, I kind of had that realization that it kind of felt like almost like a slice of life, like nihilistic slice of life movie. Did you get that feeling at all? Because I mean,
yes.
it really didn't have like a plot, like, and even the Coen brothers kind of admitted that they like threw in the cat, because before they put the cat into the scripts, like they realized that there was no solid like beginning, middle, and end or definitive plot.
Yeah, see, I think that's bullshit. I definitely understand the thought process of it being a slice of life film, and in a lot of ways it is, because it doesn't have that sort of typical point A is the beginning, point B is the middle, and then point C is what we were driving towards, for the end. I definitely agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more just, it drops you in, he's performing, it shows you a few days in his life, and then it cuts back to him performing. But I disagree, and I think it's kind of bullshit that they didn't have, like, they knew what they were doing. Like, that's a cop-out,
Yeah. I mean, I pulled that, I think, from the IMDb trivia, and we all know the history of IMDb trivia and how it's not necessarily 100% factual. So that might have been from the DVD commentary, might have been from
right. I'm not
else.
saying, I'm not calling you a liar. I'm not saying whoever put that on the IMDb commentary is a liar. I find that, I find that explanation lacking personally.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that statement, but I did kind of feel like it could be considered a slice of life film. Like there could be an argument made for that. So I was just, that was one of just my random questions that I thought of that I wanted to get your input on. So
sure.
So where, I don't know if you took the time to kind of put this to rank this Coen Brothers movie in the list of other Coen Brothers movies that you have seen and enjoyed. Do you know where this could potentially rank on that list, on your own personal list?
I'd have to watch it at least one more time, and
Sure.
I'd have to, like with any other list, I'd have to really think about it. It's going to be really tough to top, some of their other films that I hold in such high regard or high esteem.
Right.
That said, I mean, like I said, I don't know that they've ever put out a truly bad film, so it's sort of an exercise in futility even trying to rank them.
Sure.
Even for just like a personal list. It's kind of just like 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 2. You know what I mean? It's just like
right.
It's kind of difficult. I would say that just off of a first viewing, it's probably up somewhere near the top.
Okay.
It's going to be tough. For me personally, it's going to be tough for them to edge out No Country. It's going to be tough for them to edge out The Big Lebowski. It's going to be tough to edge out Blood Simple. But that said, it's it's like you said, it's like picking your favorite flavor of ice cream. Some days I like strawberry, some days I like chocolate.
Right. Yeah, for sure. What did you think of all the cameos? I know you texted me intermittently throughout your viewing of this movie, and you're like, holy shit, that's Justin Timberlake. Holy shit, that's Adam Driver.
Yeah, so I didn't really look at the cast list. I mean, I knew obviously that like Oscar Isaac played the main character. I knew John
Right.
Goodman was in it because it's a Coen Brothers movie. Um,
Yeah,
I
that's a good assumption.
think I had known that Adam Driver was in it just from hearing about the film occasionally since it was released.
Right.
Um, the one that really threw me for a loop is literally as I'm watching it, I was like, "Is that fucking Justin Timberlake? That looks like there's no way that's fucking Justin Timberlake." Because when you first meet him, the camera's never really right on him. Plus, it's kind of in that like dim nightclub.
Yeah.
Plus he's a little bit not like fat, but he's like, to me, Justin Timberlake always looks like what he looked like when I was like 15. So now he's
Sure.
like more of an adult shape.
Sure. Right. No, that makes
So
sense.
a little bigger, a little more hair. He wears his hair differently as well. So
Yeah.
it took me a minute, and then when you see him right on straight ahead in the light, I was like, "Fuck, it is."
Right.
It's difficult to decide which of my favorite or which of the supporting characters or cameos, like you said, is my favorite. Adam Driver was fucking hysterical.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, your text about him just being like stoned to be like, all right, let's record some folk music.
yeah, what that recording session of him doing all the like the background sounds, like I
Uh-oh.
was like, I really feel like before the Coen Brothers just gave him a bunch of really good hydro and we're like, have at it, dude. I don't
Right.
know that for a fact, but that's kind of what it seemed like. I will say, I think my favorite line in the film, and this is probably going to edge it towards John Goodman, and also this is one of my favorite lines that the Coen Brothers have ever written, and maybe my favorite line the Coen Brothers have ever written. When they're in the car, and Llewyn says, my friend threw himself off the George Washington Bridge, and John Goodman says, well, you jump off the Brooklyn Bridge traditionally. That fucking slayed me.
Yeah, that's
Just the
yeah.
offhand way he was like, your friend couldn't even fucking kill himself, right, moron?
Yeah.
That was phenomenal. Great
Yeah.
line.
Yeah, that was definitely a signature Coen Brothers line, delivered and executed perfectly by John Goodman. No shocker there.
Yeah, I agreed 100%.
So I'll definitely agree with you with Justin Timberlake's, like, at least his initial on-screen time, like it's very nonchalant. Like, he just kind of like what you were saying, he just shows up and the camera isn't necessarily focused on him. It doesn't take any extra shots to kind of establish like this character or anything. It's still kind of focused on Llewyn Davis as he's watching whoever is up on stage at that moment. And so I can definitely understand why you would kind of like look there for a few minutes and be like, is that Justin Timberlake? Because I think I did the exact same thing. I was just like, wait, is that fucking Justin Timberlake? So yeah, I thought that was kind of funny how you had a little bit of trouble figuring that out. It definitely makes sense. So I know you've only seen this movie once, and you definitely like to see movies a few times before you start formulating certain opinions and hypotheses and whatnot. And I totally get that, because that's something that I like to do as well. I think I've seen this movie maybe 1,000,000 times, but I was going to ask, just off of that initial one viewing, if you thought that there was maybe some sort of like quote unquote bigger picture to the movie. Like with a lot of Coen Brothers movies, it's very allegorical, multi-layered, like an onion. It seems to be a theme where, there's surface level, and then there's this bigger, much bigger picture going on. And I was curious to see if you maybe started to formulate some sort of idea as to what might be the bigger picture.
I definitely agree that a lot of the Coen Brothers works are very allegorical. I think the easiest one to point to is Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which is basically an almost exact retelling of the Odyssey.
Right.
I think that one's, like I said, the easiest to point to. It's definitely not the only one, but I'd say it's probably the most obvious. For this one, I think this one's a little more dense.
Hmm.
There are definitely some parallels and some very intentional parallels to, you know, Odysseus or Ulysses. Um, I saw where they had based this screenplay off of, I think, the autobiography of a folk musician who never, like, quote unquote made it from the
Right.
'60s, um, which is fitting. And I think there's a place for, you know, stories like that. Not everybody was Bob Dylan, just like not everybody, you know, not everybody wins in the end. That's one of the things about movies that a lot of people dislike is, oh, there's always, you know, the good guys win, quote unquote, the bad ones lose. And
Hmm.
life's not like that, as we all know. So I think there's definitely a place for stories like this one, and I'm all for it. This reminded me a lot of, like I said, there's some obvious similarities, excuse me, to the works of Homer with Odysseus and the romanization of that Ulysses. There's also some interesting references to those. The cat, for example, being named Ulysses, which
Hmm.
also ties into the works of James Joyce, which the titular novel or the novel with the same title, Ulysses. Um, so I'm not 100% sure exactly what they were going for. You know, it's tough to say after one watch. I definitely would like to see it again and kind of formulate some better thoughts about it and not sound like a rambling idiot. But there's definitely something that they were going for and that they had in mind other than just, hey, here's Oscar Isaac singing for, you know, 100 125 minutes or something.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. No, I definitely agree with a lot of what you said. I feel like there is something a little bit bigger going on here, as per usual with the Coen Brothers movies. And they, I believe they have gone on record saying that they did pull a little bit from Homer's Odyssey for this movie, as not as heavily as they did for Oh Brother Where Art Thou, like you said, but they did pull a little bit for this movie. To me, it almost seems maybe like a coming of age movie, or like an individual maturing, but in a fairly rapid pace. Because, like, within 10 to 15 minutes of starting this movie, you get the impression that not too many people in Llewyn's life like him. Like, he's pretty much a horse's ass, like,
Yeah.
for the most part. And and by the end of the movie, it seems like he's getting along with people a little bit better. Like, he's cracking up with the guy behind the bar that, he just recently had a fight with, and he got kicked out of the bar. And then, I don't know, it just seems like his overall attitude and demeanor is a little bit more lighthearted. And this kind of ties into what we were saying towards the beginning of the episode, with the shift from nihilism more towards the lighter side of things, life, etc. At the end of the movie. But yeah, that was one thing that I kind of picked up from it, was that it's almost like a coming of age or a maturing kind of thing, but just in rapid pace over the course of just a couple days. I think is just how long this movie takes place. Maybe like
Yeah,
3 or
I
4
think it's
days.
about a week maybe.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Give or take a couple of days. Yeah. So what's really interesting to me about it is, um, I did a little bit of digging around on the old internets
Hmm.
for, you know, different people's opinions, not to like steal their work, but just,
Sure.
you know, out of curiosity to see what other people thought. And I was surprised there weren't very many people who took the same things away from it that I took away from it, and I didn't feel like it was a stretch to think this, but it seems pretty clear to me that most of the movie is Llewyn, excuse me, looking back on the last week or so of his life,
Right.
because it starts, he wakes up, or I'm sorry, it starts with the performance, and then he wakes up and he's remembering all these things, and then he winds up quite literally in the same place he was at to start,
Right.
in the same performance, and he just goes on to another song. So, you know, my thinking is it's fairly straightforward that it goes, he plays the song, he thinks about the events of the last week, and I agree with you that something in him has changed.
Hmm.
Then he plays the last song, gets the shit kicked out of him, and says au revoir. So my takeaway was that I think he realized that if he wanted to be a musician, like a professional musician, he had to sacrifice something. The guy in Chicago that he goes to see says very clearly, I don't see a lot of money in it.
Right.
But if you really want to do this, you could be the second guy in this group I'm putting together, which I think was supposed to be like Peter, Paul, and Mary, or
Yes.
a
Yeah.
facsimile thereof.
Yeah, it
Where
was.
he's like, you'll do harmonies or melodies, and you won't be the guy, but you'll be part of the group. And to him, that deeply offends him, basically, and he's just like, fuck that.
Yeah.
Which kind of plays into his character well, because he's sort of set up as the struggling artiste amongst all these people that he considers
beneath him.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe lesser, or maybe just like sellouts in some way.
Sure. Yeah.
Where like he, there's the scene where he does the session work with, I believe the character's name is Jim. Is that Justin Timberlake's character's name? Jim, I think.
I actually have the movie pulled up on IMDb. Yes, Jim is Justin Timberlake, and Adam Driver is Al Cody.
Yeah, he does the session work with them, and he's sort of making fun of this song because it's just like this pop drivel, and he's like, who wrote this? And Justin Timberlake's character is like, I did. And he's just kind of like, oh,
right. But there's like obviously no harm, no foul, like on both of their faces. They just kind of like brush it off. They're like, whatever.
Right.
Like, it's the business.
Then that song comes up again when I believe it's when he's at the dinner, and the guy, one of the guests at the dinner, says, "Oh, that song's going to be a big hit. The royalties on that. Wow!" And of course, we, the audience, know that Llewyn didn't take any royalties because he needed the money up front so he could pay for somebody's abortion.
Yeah.
There's also, this is a great moment as well, when they go to the Gaslight to see the young military man play his set.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh, there's somebody special in the audience. And Llewyn's like, I don't have my guitar. I can't do it. And he's like shocked. And it seems like offended, really, when that character calls up Justin Timberlake and Carey Mulligan's characters to do a song with him. And he's just like, how the fuck, I'm the guy, I'm the talented one.
Yeah.
And then he realizes at the end, like, I can keep doing this and I'll never have shit, basically.
Right.
Or rather, I can be an adult in the in the realistic and metaphorical sense, and take some responsibilities.
Right.
Which is made even better with the bitter realization, the bitter irony that as soon as he's done on that stage, the next person up is Bob Dylan, who, as we know, in our reality, was basically the biggest folk artist that ever fucking existed, and transcended it to pop, successes, and has basically become almost deified as a songwriter, and rightfully so, in my opinion. But that just kind of adds to the bitter irony. Now, Llewyn doesn't know that, obviously. He doesn't have the benefits that we do, having quote unquote seen the future.
Right.
But that's just another great like twist of the knife.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was if they were going to throw Bob Dylan in, that was like the perfect time. It is right when he's like kind of heading outside, and he gives the stage one last look, and it just happened to be kind of like the half to the back half of Bob Dylan. And like just by his look, his fro, and of course his signature voice, it's Bob Dylan. But I love that they threw him in there, but they threw him in there in that capacity. Like in my opinion, they utilized him in the movie very well.
Yeah, I agree. It would have been very easy and very unlike the Coens to just be like, oh, and by the way, it was the 60s and folk, so here's a Bob Dylan cameo.
Right.
They did it in a very, very nuanced, very clever way to admit, like, okay, obviously Dylan was a huge thing and has to be mentioned, but we don't want to beat you about the head with it. And be too on the nose with it.
Right, for sure. Uh, just a couple more questions. What did you think about the acting performances overall?
I mean, they were good. You have a very talented cast and a pair of talented directors, so it's not surprising that everybody was good in it. I was more impressed with the singing performances, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I presume that, like with a lot of films, those were dubbed in,
Mm-hmm.
and then I found that all those were sung live.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah. I think most, if not all, of them were sung live.
yeah, which was very, very impressive to me. I was very impressed with everybody because they're not necessarily complex harmonies. It's not like you have 5 different vocal ranges going at once, but
Right.
to have people that for the most part aren't known, at least to us as singers, that was very impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I do really like Oscar Isaac in this. I mean, all the supporting actors, they all did really great jobs. So yeah, we haven't mentioned Carey Mulligan a whole lot in this episode yet, but yeah, I think she definitely deserves some props. Like the way that she gets pissed off at Llewyn Davis, just basically every time they get together, she finds another, deservedly so, reason to just attack the shit out of him, and
Tear
it's
him a new asshole, basically. Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
and
I agree. She was great. The the only thing about the movie that I disliked, and you bring her up kind of made me think about this, is a lot of the characters outside of Llewyn Davis were kind of one note.
sure.
And I feel like that was probably a deliberate choice to make Llewyn seem more interesting than he probably actually would be as a character.
Yeah, I can see that.
And also, it plays very well thematically because he's very clearly self-obsessed.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if we are taking the film to be his, um, if we're taking the film to be him going through the world as he sees it, then it makes sense for the characters to be kind of one note because to him they're just like background noise. They're, you
Yeah.
know, he's the star of the show, so to speak. So that kind of makes sense. But you're right. I did take a lot of pleasure in seeing her just get fucking pissed,
Yeah.
and just tear him a new asshole, and basically be like, "You're the worst piece of shit that's ever lived, and I hope you die."
Yeah, and it was her very, very good performance that sold that idea that you're not necessarily supposed to hate Llewyn Davis. Like, you don't have to, but you're supposed to be under the impression that he can be a dislikable character, and if you want to consider him an antagonist or a piece of shit, then go for it. Because you can make arguments for that. And so that part, if, like you always say, I don't want to assume intent from the writers and directors and the artists behind this film, but if that's what they were going for, to kind of set her dialogue as a character, set her up for making Llewyn look like an ass, then message received.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, she's not really all that likable either, if you really
No,
think about it.
no. I mean, I will say that at points it does seem like she's kind of like unnecessarily attacking him, but at the same time, you get the impression that there's a lot that has transpired between the two of them, and you really only know like the tip of the iceberg.
Right. And I don't mean that like her yelling at him or belittling him was is what made me dislike her, but like she cheated on her man and got pregnant with some other dude. That's pretty shitty. So
Right, yeah.
there's a
Yeah,
lot of
she's not
characters in this that like if you go beyond a surface level, you're like, man, these people all kind of suck. Like,
right, yeah. And in that very theme or light, it's very much like a Coen Brothers movie where no one is perfect, and they go out of their way to emphasize that be like, hey, this is kind of like real life. Like, yes, this person is like the central point of the story, or they're the main character, but here's a bunch of things that make them not perfect. And yes, that might make them look like an asshole or whatever, but guess what? Like, no one in fucking life is perfect. And we all do assholey things to each other, and we all do great things to each other. And that's just all there is to it. That's life, man. So yeah, I thought that was another great kind of a addition to this movie, that like this signature theme that comes from the Coen Brothers. But yeah, I just have one last question. We kind of touched on some of the music in a few of the previous questions, but I just wanted to get your overall thoughts on the music, because I wasn't sure where folk music fell in the realm of what your music taste is like. Like, I know we've talked a little bit about stuff that's not metal, and folk has kind of like come up a little bit in the past, but I still didn't have a good idea if you were like really into folk music. So I wanted to get your opinions on like the actual music itself in this movie, and like the original compositions.
I mean, folk music's not my favorite thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I like, some of the bigger acts. Like, I like Dylan, I mentioned earlier. Some of the bigger 60s acts I'm into as well. Depending on what you want to classify as folk. I don't want to start name dropping groups or artists like I'm knowledgeable, but some of the obvious stuff, I think, like like Simon and Garfunkel,
Mm-hmm.
Peter, Paul and Mary,
Neil Young.
some of the obvious stuff. I'm, like I said, I'm not going to act like I'm a folk connoisseur.
Right.
It's definitely not, in my top preferences, I guess, to say, but I don't outright hate it. I thought the soundtrack was good. The music that was written specifically for the film was good.
Mm-hmm.
The performances of the more classic folk songs were good, but it's just not, it's never going to be my preferred cup of tea, so to speak.
Sure. Yeah, I kind of land on the same page as you regarding folk music. Like, it's definitely not my favorite genre, and I definitely have to be in the mood to listen to it. It's not something that I could put on every day, but when I am in the mood to listen to it, and when I am in the mood to like watch this movie, like it hits all those, no pun intended, those right notes. And yeah, I really liked the original compositions for this movie. I up at this point, when I first saw the movie, I was a fan of Mumford and Sons, and they did one of the few original songs for this movie. And of course, that was back when they were like, that was their thing, was like the new age folk bands with like, an actual upright bass and violins and other stringed instruments and all that. And so like that was kind of like my jam. So when this movie came out, it kind of like hit at that right exact time for me, where it was like, fuck yeah, like, really got into it. So yeah, like I said, I was just curious to hear your thoughts on the music. So it's good to hear that, you got at least something out of it. I totally understand where you're coming from with folk, like not being your main jam. Makes sense, because it's definitely not mine. But yeah, anyways, that's pretty much it for my questions. Do you have any other thoughts that you want to throw out for this movie?
I thought it was really well done, which is, again, no surprise. Look at who is involved in it, but
Right.
I definitely recommend it. Not everybody's going to like it, and even one thing I noticed is that even people that are really, like big fans of the Coen Brothers, this movie is still really divisive. A lot of people that enjoy their other films didn't enjoy this at all. I saw the words "dreadfully boring" pop up several times, and I was just like, "Did we watch the same movie?" Like,
Right, you uncultured swine.
yeah. Well, yeah. Well, yes, clearly, but um, I don't get it. It's like any other art, it's going to come down to personal preference, right?
Sure.
There's nothing that's universally beloved. There's nothing that's universally reviled. I am often at a loss where, you even though I think that these opinions are valid and you're certainly allowed to have them, I'm often dumbfounded by them a lot of times.
Right, yeah. Yeah, one thing that I thought was really interesting was when I was going through the trivia that the original Roger Deakins was originally supposed to be, or they wanted him to be the DP, or
Mhm.
isn't that his title, or cinematographer, or I
Yeah,
mean,
they're
he
similar.
works. Yeah, he's worked with the Coen Brothers a lot in the past. He's helped them win several awards. He's also worked, of course, with Sam Mendes. We talked about him on the 1917 movie. So, but yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting that they originally wanted to get him, but at the time I think it was one of the James Bond movies that they were working on. It might have been Skyfall that he was working on, so they couldn't get him. But it did. I feel like it did kind of resemble a Roger Deakins kind of directing cinematography style.
I mean, I don't know. I think Roger Deakins sort of has a style unto himself. Um, it's funny that you bring that up because I saw the other day um, that, or earlier today maybe, that he had just launched a podcast like everybody else. He's probably bored in quarantine. Just launched a podcast with his wife and collaborator James Deakins. They work, I think, on all of his films, or all the films he's been hired on. I think they have collaborated on,
Sure.
as well as, obviously, like I said, they're married, so nobody probably knows him better than she does. They've started a podcast about it. Anyway, I bring that up to say that I was actually thinking about the different films that he's done or that he's worked on, and how many of them are like on my short list of favorites. And it's
Yeah.
kind of a shocking amount, actually.
Yeah, a lot.
It's more than you would probably think.
Okay.
Normally when you're like, oh, I love such and such director, and you rattle off their movies, they probably have a crew that's very, um, maybe not ubiquitous, but they probably work with a lot of the same people.
Right.
Like we've talked about the Coens, they work with John Goodman a lot. They have a pretty unique style, etc. But yeah, so many of the movies I like, the common theme with them is Team Deakins
Yeah.
cinematography.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. But that's cool. Now I want to go find that podcast, listen to it. I'm curious to hear what it's all about.
It's called Team Deakins.
Okay.
It came out last week, I think.
Mhm.
And I think it's just available on his website, rogerdeakins.com. But I think when they dropped it, they dropped like 6 episodes at once. So it's not
Oh,
like,
okay.
they didn't come out with, like most podcasts come out and they're like the 3-minute teaser of like, we're going to talk about this. They just came out and they're like, bam, here's 6 episodes, deal with it.
Yeah.
Not to sound like a pretentious dick, I don't think this is going to be something that a lot of our listeners, all 4 of them, care about necessarily. Based on what I'm seeing about it, it's like pretty deep into like the type of lens choices and lighting styles and things like that. So
Right.
if you're not interested in that sentence, you're probably not going to like the podcast. I personally haven't listened to it, so I can't speak, to the quality of it. But
Sure.
those are 2 very intelligent fucking people, so I would
Hmm.
assume they know their shit about cinematography and the like. So I'll give it a
Yeah.
shot.
Yeah. I mean, he got to work with the Coen Brothers and with Sam
Multiple times.
Mendes, and yeah, and they've been around for a long time, and they got to work with Daniel Craig, and so I feel like I owe it to him to listen to the podcast. So yeah. But to all 3 or 4 of you out there that are currently listening to this episode, probably not at the same time, but yeah, if you appreciate movies in any form or fashion that aren't necessarily considered popcorn flicks, that might be a little bit deeper, then yeah, this movie, Inside Llewyn Davis, is for you, and other Coen Brothers and other Sam Mendes and other Roger Deakins cinematography.
It's pronounced Mendes.
All right, we're done here.
Okay, well, we had a good run.
No, but yeah, unless you have anything else to add, I think this is a good place to wrap it up.
Yeah, no, like I said, I definitely recommend the film. I don't think everybody's going to like it, obviously, but I definitely did, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's definitely not for everyone. I'll echo that. I don't know why I like it so much. Like I said, it's definitely not my favorite Coen Brothers movie, but it's definitely up there, and it's just different. Like it feels different, and it's kind of fun. Despite the fact that it feels like a little bit of a downer, it doesn't bring me down. It kind of, it has a little bit of a happy ending. So I don't know. I liked it, and I am very glad that you enjoyed it as well. That makes me excited. So yeah, do we want to talk about what movie we are going to be discussing next week?
Yes, because I think it'll be a little more in the wheelhouse of the average Geek Garage podcast listener.
Probably.
On our last episode, David had mentioned that when we were sort of teasing this slew of episodes upcoming where we select movies for the other to watch, he had brought up my well-known affinity for kung fu movies, and had said something to the effect of, if one of your movies isn't a kung fu movie, I'll be very disappointed. I originally hadn't picked a kung fu or wuxia movie for him to view, so I went back and I rectified that. So next week I will have made David watch Ip Man, starring Donnie Yen. For those of you that have never seen Ip Man, you're fucking doing something very wrong in your life. For those of you who heard that title and were like, hell yes, what's up? Welcome to the show. We're gonna have a good time.
Hope that you.
I love this movie. I like Donnie Yen a lot. He's one of the actors that it's just like, oh, he's in it? Yeah, I'll watch it. Fuck it out.
All right.
One of the few. I've learned a lot of dark lessons about that thought process. Yeah, it's just a great, solid kung fu movie. I mean, it's nothing to write home about in terms of like, you're probably not going to come away from this and feel like your life has changed or like you've had this big philosophical breakthrough. But you get to see Donnie Yen kick the shit out of people for like 90 minutes, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, you do. I started it the other day, and let's just say I'm excited for next week's episode.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
It's going to be a good one.
One last thing, and then we will do our sign off. We will hit our shit that doesn't suck, which of course is our funny, edgy way of saying, hey, these are things that we like. Maybe you'll like them too. For me this week, I have been revisiting the Trailer Park Boys. I was never a huge fan of it. Not because I didn't like it. I had seen clips and watched a couple episodes with friends or what have you, and I enjoyed it, but I'm not really a series guy. I don't watch a lot of like TV series, so I just never really got that into it. I put it on the other day just because I was wanting something quick and funny to watch. And I was like, I'll watch this. And I got sucked immediately. And I'm like 4 seasons deep. And it is so fucking funny. It's just, it's not going to be for everybody. The humor's not going to be for everybody. But it's just like, I don't know. There's something about this just lowbrow shit that I love. So,
right.
Super into it. A lot of great one-liners and non sequiturs in this show. So very, very on brand for me.
Yeah, this has been on my list for quite some time now, and just it's the same reason why I haven't gotten to everything else on the list, is because the list is so goddamn long. So eventually I will get to this I definitely have plans on it. I've heard nothing but great things about the comedy. So, and I mean, it definitely seems like something that I would watch. So, yeah, eventually I'll get to it, but it's definitely good to hear that you enjoy it and think it's funny. So, but anyways, my shit that doesn't suck is a brand new series that just came out on Netflix. Well, relatively new. It was last week or two. It's The Midnight Gospel. It's by, I think, the show creator or runner or director or what have you from Adventure Time. It's also, the main character is voiced by Duncan Trussell, who is a stand-up comedian. He has his own podcast and he does a bunch of other shit. But he has a very cartoony voice, so it's very fitting. And let me tell you, first of all, the show is very good. Like, it makes a lot of excellent points. Like, each episode is kind of dedicated to one, like, quote unquote topic. Like, the first one is kind of like the legalization of recreational and psychotropic drugs. But the animation style, I don't think it's going to be for everyone. It's very out there. And I'll say this, if you're the kind of person who likes to partake in psychotropic substances, do so while watching this movie and thank me later, because yeah, it is a trip, as they say. So
for any government agents that may be listening in, David is not suggesting that anyone do anything illegal at any time ever. Geek Garage does not endorse or condone such activities. However, do whatever the fuck you want. Laws are stupid things that we made up just cause.
Thank you, Theodore, for that disclaimer. I appreciate it. But yes, go watch the show. It is definitely wild and out there. Like I said, it's not for everyone, but yeah, if you just watch the trailer, and that will be like the decider for you. Like, people will either be like, definitely not for me, or like, I'm definitely gonna have to give this a go. And yeah, just based off that trailer, you should be able to make the decision for yourself. So yeah,
I've not watched it yet. The trailer reminded me a little bit of similar sort of art style to Heavy Metal.
Sure.
It looks trippy main, basically.
Yes.
Yes,
sure you could say that.
To it probably at some point. So,
yeah, it's interesting. Let me tell you that. All right. Well, I believe that'll do it for this episode of the Geek Garage podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode numero 19 of Ghosts of the Movies. Like always, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, blah, 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 blah. Find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, again,
we're
YouTube.
We're getting a Friendster account next week.
Yeah, we're hooking up with the new popular ones. Next will be on LiveJournal. But yeah, like I said, go subscribe to all that shit, and we will see you next time. And as always, be kind, stay geeky, eat lots of cheesecake. Bye-bye.
Hey, hello, what's up, and welcome into this week's episode of the Geek Garage podcast, where this week we are going to the movies. I am Ted, joined as fuck. I am Ted.
I'm Ted Fuck. That's my porn name.
New band name.
I am Ted Fuck. I piss my pants in church.